Most businesses don't break all at once. They drift. Quietly, incrementally, one small compromise at a time. Most businesses don't fail all at once. They drift. Quietly, incrementally, one small compromise at a time.
Welcome to Built to Carry, the podcast for business owners who have built successful businesses but find themselves carrying more of the weight than they ever expected. I'm Darren Cioffi. I'm a fractional CFO, business coach, entrepreneur, and business owner. For more than 30 years, I worked alongside business owners, helping them understand their numbers, improve profitability, strengthen cash flow, and build businesses that don't depend on them for every decision. Over those 30 years, I've learned something important. Most business problems aren't financial problems. The financial systems are usually just the first place they show up. The real issues are almost always structural. They're hidden in leadership. They're hidden in systems. They're hidden in decision-making. They're hidden in habits that have been repeated for years. Built to Carry is about helping you build a business strong enough to carry growth, carry change, carry challenges, and ultimately carry on without everything resting on your shoulders. Because your business should be built to carry you, not built to crush the owner. Now, let's get to today's episode. Hey, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about the drift you don't see. And I want to start with a simple question. Have you ever looked around your business and asked yourself, how the hell did I get here? Maybe you're making more revenue than you were 3 years ago, but somehow you're working more hours. Maybe every decision still lands on your desk. See, maybe cash feels tighter than it should. Usually does. And maybe you're successful on paper, but exhausted in reality. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. Because most business owners don't wake up one morning and suddenly find themselves overwhelmed. See, just like most airplanes don't suddenly fall out of the sky, they drift. Now, I've spent more than 30 years as an accountant, CFO, and business advisor. But about 20 years ago, I started flying, and something happened. The more I learned about aviation, the more I understood business. Not because airplanes and businesses are the same thing, because they fail for the same reasons. See, as an accountant, I could always see the damage after it happened. But as a pilot, I learned how to recognize warning signs before it happened. And once I understood drift, I started seeing it everywhere. Let me tell you about a business owner. We'll call him Mike. Mike owned a successful contracting company, still does. Good reputation, good people, plenty of work. Every time I talked to him, I heard the same thing. Darren, we're busy. Darren, we're booked. Darren, we're growing. He wasn't wrong. See, the trucks were moving, the crews were working, the phone was ringing. From the outside, everything looked healthy. Then one afternoon, he called me. And I could hear it in his voice immediately. Something was different. He said, Darren, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. Now think about that for a minute. Have you ever been in that spot where you didn't know where you were going to make payroll? Or you were going to pay the rent? Or you were going to get money for supplies? See, a week earlier, everything was great. A week later, payroll was a problem. So what happened? Nothing. Nothing major. No major customers left. No lawsuit. No disaster. No catastrophic event. Nothing really happened. At least nothing obvious. But when we dug in, what we found what really happened was drift. See, and we all do this. I've done this as a business owner. Little overspending here, a little delay in collections there, a few projects that weren't profitable as they appeared to be. See, a couple of decisions that seemed harmless at the time. None of those things individually were a problem. Together, they became one. And that's how drift works. It doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. See, now what's interesting is Mike wasn't doing anything different than most business owners do. In fact, he was doing exactly what most of us do, trusting his instincts. And this is where aviation completely changed the way I look at business. One of the first things they teach you in flight training sounds completely backwards. They teach you not to trust yourself. Just think about that for a second. Your entire life you've been told, trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust your feelings. Then you get into a cockpit and an instructor tells you, your instincts can kill you. That gets your attention because nobody wants to hear that. We all want to believe we're smart enough, experienced enough, capable enough. But the reality is your body lies. And that's something every pilot eventually learns. I want to talk about something that they call spatial disorientation. See, it's responsible for countless accidents. And it happens because your body loses its ability to accurately determine what's happening around you. The most common place it happens, inside the clouds. See, when you enter a cloud, you lose the horizon. You can no longer see where the sky ends and the ground begins. Now your body starts guessing. Your inner ear starts guessing. Your brain starts guessing. And here's the scary part. It becomes absolutely convinced it's right. You may feel like you're flying straight. You're actually turning. You may feel level. You're descending. You may feel safe. You're actually heading towards danger. There have been pilots flying perfectly functioning airplanes who flew directly into the ground because they trusted what they felt instead of what the instruments were telling them. The airplane wasn't broken. The pilot's interpretation was. And that's why pilots are taught something that sounds unnatural. Trust the instruments, not your instincts. See, I remember one instructor telling me something I'll never forget. He said, "Hey, Darren, the cloud isn't dangerous." I thought that was ridiculous. Of course clouds are dangerous. He said, "No, the cloud is a cloud. The danger is losing your reference point." That lesson stayed with me because it's exactly what happens in business. See, business owners lose their reference points all the time. Revenue goes up, they assume they're making money. The phone rings more often, they assume the business is healthy. Customers seem happy, they assume everything is working. The problem is assumptions aren't instruments, they're feelings. And feelings make terrible, terrible navigators. See, I sit down with business owners every week and I ask the same question. How's your business? And 9 times out of 10, the answers are almost always the same. I think we're doing okay. I feel like things are improving. Seems like we're making money. Think, feel, seems. Notice something? None of them are measurements. They're emotions. Imagine getting on an airplane and hearing the pilot say, "I feel like we're at 10,000 feet. I wouldn't stay on that flight, would you?" Because altitude isn't determined by feelings, it's determined by instruments. Yet business owners do this every day. They make decisions based on how things feel instead of what the numbers actually say. See, one of the biggest lessons flying taught me is that the view outside the airplane can be deceptive. The weather can fool you. The horizon can fool you. Your body can fool you. That's why we have instruments. In business, the window is activity. The phone is ringing. Employees are busy, customers are calling, projects are moving. Everything looks good. But here's the thing. Activity is not health. Busy is not profitable. Revenue is not cash. Growth is not stability. I've seen companies doing millions of dollars in revenue that were weeks away from a cash crisis. And I've seen smaller companies with solid systems that were healthier than businesses 10 times their size. See, the window lies. The gauges don't. See, this is where people get themselves into trouble. Everybody thinks failure is dangerous. Failure gets your attention. Success is what creates drift. When things go badly, we start asking questions. When things go well, we stop asking questions. Why? Because the money's coming in. Customers are happy. The team is busy. So we stop checking. We stop measuring. We stop paying attention. See, the airplane's still moving, but nobody is checking whether it's still on course. And that's how drift begins. See, everybody should have systems. And this is why systems matter. Because every pilot uses checklists. Every pilot. Before takeoff, checklist. Before landing, checklist. Emergencies, checklist. Even once the plane reaches cruise, checklist. You know why? Because pilots aren't trying to remember everything. They're trying to eliminate mistakes. See, because as humans, we forget. We get distracted. We rationalize. Systems don't. See, the checklist doesn't care how confident you feel. The checklist doesn't care how much experience you have. The checklist asks one question. Did you follow the process? Business should work the same way. The owner becomes the system. Here's what happens to most successful business owners. They're resourceful. They're problem solvers. Right? They're willing to do whatever it takes. That's what makes them successful. That's what makes them business owners. But eventually that strength becomes a weakness. Because instead of building systems, they become the system. Need a decision? Ask the owner. Need approval? Ask the owner. Need direction? Ask the owner. Need help? Ask the owner. Need an answer? Ask the owner. See, everything routes through them. And because they're capable, they convince themselves everything is working. But they're not running a business. They're carrying one. And that is exhausting. See, a few years ago, I worked with this restaurant owner. He's a great guy. He still is. Hard worker, good revenue. But every Friday, payroll was a panic attack. Every Friday. And every week, I'd hear something's come up. There was this unexpected expense. I had to cover this. I had to cover that. When we finally sat down and looked at the numbers, we discovered the problem wasn't revenue. The problem was there was no instrument panel, no process, no reserve strategy, no cash management strategy. Everything was based on reaction. Everything was based on instinct. Whoever was in front of him screaming, that's who he took care of. See, they weren't managing the business. They were surviving it. And survival is not a strategy. So here's my challenge for you this week. Ask yourself 3 questions. Where am I flying by feel instead of facts? What numbers am I avoiding? What problem keeps showing up because I haven't built a system around it? See, because drift doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly, one small deviation at a time. Just like an airplane in the clouds. The pilot feels safe. The passengers feel safe. Everything feels normal until somebody finally looks at the instrument and realizes they're miles off course. The question isn't whether drift exists in your business. It does. It's there. It will always be there. The question is whether you're willing to look at the gauges, because next time we're talking about where drift actually begins. Because it's not in your finances. It's not in your operations. But see, it's in its roots. Because every business grows exactly like the tree. And if the roots aren't healthy, nothing above them will be stable. So I'm Darren Cioffi. And remember, drift is inevitable. Collapse is optional. I'll see you next time right here on Built to Carry.
Bank says pressure, everybody's smiling, but the structure gets lesser. Payroll Friday, can't sleep Thursday night. Everybody needs answers and they're looking left and right. Every problem routes back to the same damn chair. Everybody says they got it till nobody's there. No alarms, no crash, just a slow pull off course. You don't notice drift till the weight gets worse. Built to carry, it doesn't look like danger. Built to carry, feels normal to the owner. One more fix, one more file, one more late night. Why? Till the business owns the builder. instead of getting stronger.